Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning, Kathleen. We can hear you fine. Good morning. Could the phone number ending in 69 please state your name?
Shauna Bolick.
Great. Thank you.
To the virtual participants, we are gathering here in the room and we will get started shortly.
At 9. Jane's out here. Oh, really? Okay, cool. Perfect. Oh,
You ready?
perfect. Yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay. Here we go. The Tax System Modernization Committee will please come to order. For the record, it is 10 a.m. on Friday, March 29th, 2024. We are meeting in the Department of Revenue building at 1600 West Monroe Street, Phoenix, Arizona, in room 611. I'm Rob Woods, chairman of the committee. As it appears, we do have a quorum. We will proceed with our scheduled meeting. First, I ask that each committee member in attendance state his or her name for the record, just for simplicity. We can start in the room and then go online afterwards.
Michaela Andrews, Arizona. I'm from the legislature, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee.
Lindsay Perry, Auditor General. Nice to see you all.
Heidi Thomas. Emily Webb.
Leo Lou, Pinell County. Chuck Brown, DOA.
And for our remote participants,
Shauna Bolick with the Arizona State Senate.
Sarah Brown with the Arizona Governor's Budget Office.
Kathleen Gitkin, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Phoenix.
excellent. We are glad you are all here. I now ask committee staff in attendance to state their names for the record.
Speaking, sorry. Yeah, so Neeraj Deshpande, Deputy Director, DOR.
Cynthia Rainey, Deputy Assistant Director, DOR.
So I want to, we will briefly come back to the team introduction. This is the staff, so I just want to make a distinction.
Sheen Pine, General Counsel of DAF.
Okay. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. I would like to just make a couple quick comments as welcome. First of all, for our agenda today, the first meeting, getting things going, in some ways is the trickiest. And this meeting may be a bit more so simply because around the table, we have folks that have varying levels of familiarity with this particular project. And so one of the goals of today's meeting is to level set and kind of get everybody on the same page as we move forward. So apologies in advance for those of you on the committee that already know quite a bit about what we're going to cover today. But I do think it makes sense for us to cover a bit of how we got to where we are, where we are right now, and high level, what does the next 4 or 5 years look like? So I think time spent on that makes a lot of sense for this team, and the agenda was constructed for that. I think that there are going to be a few points of, frankly, business of the committee where we decide things like how often should we meet, and based on the questions asked today, I know that future agendas will be highly responsive to the interests of this team. So this meeting gets us going, and based on the questions and topics discussed today, I know future meetings will serve this committee well. The only other thing I want to say is I am so excited to be here with all of you personally. I have to say that this committee is sort of singular in its purpose compared to all the other bodies that we report out to on a regular basis. And I know for myself and the team, we really value the dialogue that's going to happen in this space. And it's always daunting when the Auditor General is sitting a couple seats down the table. And I recognize that in a committee setting, there's a level of protocol that is appropriate and necessary for a public meeting. And certainly we hear all those things. And in addition to that, my goal as a chairman for this committee is to create an environment that is also somewhat less formal, such that really good dialogue and conversation takes place, because that is really where the value to both groups come. And there's a team sitting over there that will meet shortly that I know feels the same way. So I wanted to make that comment that there is such value to all of us in the dialogue that's going to take place here. So thank you in advance to everyone on the committee for serving. By the way, there was a lot of enthusiasm in response to folks that were appointed to this committee, and we certainly appreciate that as well. Moving forward, we thought it would make sense to talk briefly about the Tax System Modernization Committee purpose. And after just running through a quick piece here, I want to open it up to the committee to ask questions or make comments. So to all of you, hopefully you received a copy of statute ARS section 42-1009. And aside from listing the composition of the team members, it simply describes this committee's purpose as one of serving as a liaison between the department and users of the tax system. That is a critically important role. It has been for this project for a couple of years leading up to it through some feasibility study work that was done. And it is critically important now. When the department thinks about this project, we think certainly in terms of staff members as users of the system, but critically, there are going to be external users of the system as well. And some of those users are in fact investors in the system, whether that be cities and counties that are stakeholders expecting a return on their investment. And particularly for a lot of those groups, feedback is going to be really useful that this system lives up to the promises of the investment. So I think again, this committee is such a good idea that even if it weren't put into legislation, I would hope that we would still be here doing something like this. So with that, I would love to open up to members of the committee and just sort of level set any feedback or comments on the purpose of the committee and maybe what you hope we can accomplish a bit going forward. And I apologize that I cannot see our colleagues that are remote. So if I have somebody monitoring, if anyone's raising their virtual hand, I would appreciate if I could get some assistance on that. Any comments from the committee?
Oh, it's always hard to get started in discussion, so I don't mind. I'll go first. I'm pleased to be here. Appreciate the invite. But I'd say if we're supposed to help feed information from the community back to the department as the project goes through, I'd like to understand, where the department is in their own efforts on that, either as part of business today or future business, right? What internal, external stakeholder groups you have and what information that could be passed in for us to look at. What groups might we want to contact when appropriate to get their feedback and make sure we're helping get that information to the group.
Appreciate the comments.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So certainly appreciate a seat at the table. As the Auditor General's office, we have to be a little bit careful with our independence because we are auditing the very system that you will be rolling out, or auditing the data from the system and certainly the controls around the system. And so we've been meeting with your team, Niraj, and his team, and Laura Lee, and it's been a really positive, sort of mutually beneficial relationship because we can hear about the things that are going on as part of the development process and have some input to the audit side. And so that's been really helpful. I would like to say that as I'm a non-voting member, right? And so that helps protect sort of the independence from the audit side, from whatever moves forward in the advisory committee, and so really excited to be part of this because ultimately we have the same goals, right? To protect the state. And we want to make sure when this is rolled out that there really are not a lot of big issues because this is a huge undertaking. And so where my team, Nicole Bartlett, she's my manager of the statewide audit, and then Jeff Gove will also be here at some point. He's my performance audit director. And so where we can provide some insight as to some audit issues that we see as part of the development or rollout, we're happy to do. And I'm happy to sit on this committee and provide feedback in that capacity.
I appreciate those comments. And if I could piggyback that just a bit, I think in the defined role as liaison, I think all of us represent communities that are larger than just us sitting at the table, whether that's your teams or others. And I think the ability to pull in folks to subsequent meetings that makes sense, I think is going to be very effective. Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have anyone? Kathleen Gitkin, please proceed.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to serve on this. I think I expressed it to Rob, and I would just like to express it again. I'm really looking forward to a comprehensive system that serves all our taxpayers. And, you know, for me, it's about educating myself and understanding things as we go forward. And I'm excited about that, any opportunity to learn. But, you know, we find that the majority of people want to comply with all of our laws. But sometimes it's just really hard and it's really complicated to navigate through the process. And so I'm just excited to have, you know, a tool that's going to provide the data sets to enhance our ability to educate and assist our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Before we move on to the substantive agenda items, I think it would be helpful for us to review some of the basic rules governing the committee. For this, the chair recognizes Sheen Pai to provide some very brief comments.
Yes, very great. Mr. Chair, members, and hopefully you can hear me, but online.
To our colleagues who are remote committee members, can you hear Sheen? Yeah,
Great, okay. I'll try to do this. You know, this Linda Scott are very capable, yet they provided each of you with a copy of just some really high level bullets. Any of you that served on homeowners associations or fraternities or sororities probably remember Robert's rules. You know, it very much follows that sequence. You know, our chair is the conductor of the meeting, and so most comments are addressed to him. If there's, you know, points that you want to make during the course of the meeting and need to interrupt, that, you know, I've listed them for you there. I don't foresee that being a frequent occurrence, but nevertheless, you know, I think one of the most important bullets that we emphasize at the department with all of our various boards and commissions is just the need to not discuss committee matters with each other, committee members outside of these meetings. If you have questions, if you have anything that you would like to discriminate or something you'd like to point out, please send an email or contact a member of the staff, and we will take care of that. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I think, you know, again, if you have any questions, please contact me. And again, in the future, if there's something sensitive or confidential that comes up, we do have the ability to go into executive session just as you would in other open meetings. So with that, are there any questions?
Any questions for Sheen from the members of the committee?
And I do think because of the remote environment, it was noted to me, people may have an issue identifying who's speaking. So I don't know, initially, maybe it would be a good idea that for this first meeting, just for people to kind of say this is such and such speaking. I'm sure as we progress with these meetings, that will be necessary. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sheen. Very good information. Any questions or comments based on what Sheen just presented? Okay, then we will continue moving on down the agenda. For our next item, the chair requests that the STARS project team provide some information to the committee about themselves. So the chair recognizes Neeraj Deshpande.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So you will hear me being pronounced Neeraj or Niraj. So just to take care of it. So my name is Niraj Deshpande. I'm the deputy project sponsor, and also I'm the deputy director for the Department of Revenue. And I'm extremely excited to see you all here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Ramey, and I'm a Deputy Assistant Director here at the Department of Revenue, working full-time at the STARS League.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Smith. I am also Deputy Assistant Director here at the department and working full-time on the STARS project as a distance lead, and I'm happy to be here.
Good morning. I'm Laurie Hedgen. I'm the STARS Project Manager for the Department of Revenue. Ranbir, tag you next.
Good morning. My name is Ranbir Snapper. I'm the CIO at the Department of Revenue.
Good morning.
My name is Tom Rickup, and I'm the Deputy CIO at DOR. Nice to meet you.
Good morning. My name is Saurabh Reza. I'm a Vice President with GCOM Software and the Project Manager for the STARS project.
Good morning. My name is Leah Cheney. I'm the Deputy Project Manager for GCOM on the STARS project.
Hey, good morning, team. I'm Ameya Kulkarni. I'm one of the STARS project managers for ADR.
I think we substantially got through the STARS project team. Thank you, team. For our next agenda item, the STARS project team will provide a brief presentation on the project history, current state of the project, and a high-level timeline. To start off the presentation, the chair recognizes Elaine Smith and Cynthia Ramey. And if I could make a quick comment to the members of the committee, as we go through this presentation, there will certainly be opportunities to ask questions. If there's a question that makes more sense to interject, let's try that, see how that goes, again, to create dialogue. So with that, Elaine and Cynthia.
Thank you. I'll be going first, then you'll feel me a little bit later on in the presentation. So just want to start off by thanking everyone for coming today and meeting with us. We're excited to talk to you about the STARS project, which is our tax system implementation project. Scope of the presentation today will be to provide you a brief history of some of our preparation efforts, an overview of the RevSolve system by Rob, and also to talk about the project timeline and status. Next one, please. So we started back in early 2020. The department conducted a feasibility study with third-party firm Grant Thornton. During this feasibility study, the department met with and interviewed 10 states of similar size to discover any lessons learned from their own implementation project. And some of the key lessons that we learned from those interviews were to have a dedicated staff of our best and brightest assigned to the project, to have a robust change management program, to begin data preparation efforts as early as possible, and to have an active executive sponsor. So with the preparation efforts, we collaborated with key stakeholders. We received current system of pain point feedback from cities and towns, from the counties, from third-party software vendors with whom we interact regularly, as well as the Arizona Forum for Improvement of Taxation, or AFIT. So each one of us provided feedback. In addition, with the cities and towns, they also participated in our feasibility study of the stakeholders. They helped us build business requirements that were used for the RFP, or the request for proposal, and some even participated in the school. So in early 2019, we began our data preparation efforts. And through these efforts, we created a tax data management district in order to centralize and execute our data cleansing activity. We also participated in a data maturity assessment with the Department of Administration. We have begun applying these data principles learned by creating data extracts that can be used for migration purposes, and along with a complete data dictionary that will be used by the vendors. The state executed a contract with GCOM Software LLC to provide a integrated tax system. The RevSolve integrated tax system will contain all tax business functions that the department administers. It will contain a external taxpayer-facing portal that the taxpayers will use to transact with the department regardless of tax type. It will contain a single case management system that will be used for taxpayer interactions by authorized users within the system. And most importantly, it will contain an income modeling functionality that is required by statute. Thank you very much. And then next, I'd like to introduce Rob.
Members of the committee, again, my name is Saurabh Reza. I represent GCOM Software and I'm the project manager for the STARS project. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you for a few minutes today. GCOM's focus is on supporting the federal, state, and local governments, solving their pain points and deploying software to create safer and more prosperous communities. We've supported the IRS and state departments of revenue for close to 2 decades, bringing forward new software to identify fraud, non-compliance, and bring forward efficiencies in the administration of tax. We support several states currently with departments of revenue and manage a pretty large portfolio at the Internal Revenue Service as well. From this experience, we started to identify a number of pain points that different states were facing. A number of legacy applications, different technologies, outdated technologies, lack of a robust taxpayer portal. And several years ago, GCOM started the ambitious effort to create a new integrated tax system from the ground up, using modern technology and creating software that would act like software you would expect as a modern user using a browser. The software we created is called RevHub, and RevHub is our enterprise platform for tax administration. As Cynthia mentioned, it is a complete integrated tax system. Next slide, please. When we talk about RevHub, we typically describe it as modern, intelligent, and flexible. When you go to use your bank, you don't have to take training on how to use their user interface. You log into your bank account, you complete your transaction, you log out, and you go about your day. So we take advantage of modern technology, modern databases, user experiences, and user journey information to provide that modern experience that a taxpayer would expect from any corporation or government agency that they're working with. It's intelligent in the sense that we embed machine learning algorithms throughout the process. Rather than having to hard code different business rules, the machine learning algorithms will identify for auditors, for collectors, for others in the business, automated workflows, and identify areas that may need new attention that you would not be able to spot just by the human eye. And lastly, we describe RevHub as flexible. There are a number of configurable components: the tax calculators, the reports, the business rule engine, the case management. There are a number of flexible components of RevHub that are in the hands of the business users, so the business can manage those configurations on their own without having to open IT tickets to get other work done. When we look at the scope that RevHub handles, it takes care of everything from processing returns through taxpayer and revenue accounting, billing and collections. There's a robust case management system. So if you've ever had a call and get transferred around, the single case management system allows everyone within the building to see the same information, and it's the same information that's presented to the taxpayer. In addition to providing security and insider threat information for internal users, Cynthia mentioned the tax policy simulator that was required in statute. This is a flexible calculator that allows internal and a limited number of external users to apply different ratios and calculations to understand what impact the tax policy may have on the tax-paying population and how it may impact the state. Talked a little bit about the online portal. It's a bit of a pain point at the moment. Every tax type and fee will have an online portal where users can have their self-service functionality. They can pay bills, they can see notices, they can get help. So empowering those taxpayers to solve their problems online, again, with an interface that's intuitive, that doesn't require them to go to training to make the most out of it. Are there any questions in general about RevHub or GCOM?
Chair recognizes Ms. House.
Sure. So you mentioned the machine learning algorithm. Can you describe the scenario and how that would work?
Absolutely. Members of the committee. GCOM as a firm, we've been supporting the Department of Revenue since 2015. Our current contracts cover fraud mitigation support and the identification of remote sellers who are not remitting. So both of those projects contain machine learning processes that help identify areas of noncompliance. So in the area of fraud, as an example for individual income tax, we're bringing in data not just from the individual income tax return itself, so what the taxpayers are filling in, We're bringing in metadata about how they submitted the tax return, how long did it take to complete a tax return, where did they submit it from, all the information you get from your tax provider. And then we combine that with other information, third-party information, and we create machine learning algorithms that identify particular areas of concern that would score it on a scale of 0 to 1. And then we prioritize and bucket those potentially fraudulent returns and send them out to different fraud investigators. So by using machine learning algorithms, RevHub is able to identify emerging patterns. So as we're starting to see, for example, tax returns coming from a specific area, the fraud rate associated with that IP address or those filing characteristics will have a higher score, which will affect the overall score and push those returns to a particular area of treatment. I hope that answers your question.
Members of the committee, any other questions for Sora?
Thank you. I'll hand it over to Laura Lee Hutchins to talk about the project schedule.
Good morning. Hello again. I'm Laura Hutchins. I'm Star Project Manager for the Department of Revenue. Welcome members of the committee. Next slide. All right, STAR's overall project timeline covers the project initiation, which was August 8th, 2023, through the end of 2028. The high-level timeline begins with the discovery and planning phase, which is scheduled for 18 months and leads into implementation phases 1 through 4. The current estimated timeline for each of these phases includes the delivery of the minor tax receipt type in phase 1, and major tax and fee type like corporate, individual, TPP in phases 2 through 4. Next slide, please. So the current phase that we're in is called the discovery and planning phase. And like I said, it's last 18 months and it's scheduled through February of 2025. The purpose of the discovery and planning phase is really to lead the way into the implementation phases. It includes key deliverables like tax type discovery and documents like documents as understanding, which is kind of like a requirement document, as well as configuration document. The final deliverable, the key deliverable of the discovery and planning phase is the implementation plan and schedule for the remainder of the project. Also, key activities for the discovery and planning phase includes pre-implementation activity. It covers things like the development, the finalization of the technical design, the system security plan, FedRAMP authorization, and the implementation of the RevHub application, the base application, and infrastructure to install, which is already being completed. Also, in December, key implementation activities will roll forward in a strategic effort that is to demonstrate and to validate system functionality, as well as to generate learning for future implementation. These early opportunities will be covered more in an upcoming slide. Next slide. All right, I wanted to take you through our current project health card. This project health card is tied to our project metrics and is monitored on a regular basis. Currently, the STARS project is on schedule according to the STARS project plan. This plan is reviewed and monitored on a weekly basis. The STARS project consists of 20 major milestones. These are the milestones that we have agreed to and approved by the Department of Administration. Currently, we have 6 that are complete, 8 that are on schedule, 3 that are trending yellow. I'll talk about those, and 3 that are scheduled to start in the future. Of the 3 that are yellow, one of those is hiring. We have a couple of key positions that we are still working to bring on board. One of them is this committee. It took a while to bring y'all to the table, so we're very glad that also will actually complete at the end of the meeting, which is great. The other yellow is we did run into an issue with our vendor onboarding with our IDP vendor, our independent oversight vendor. We do run into an offshore contract issue that is very close to being resolved as well. So it's in the proposal and its final stages of review. The STARS budget is currently tracking within budget. The budget expenditures and estimates are reviewed monthly as part of the ATF financial reporting. The risks are actively managed according to the STAR risk management plan. The Gartner, again, our independent verification and validation vendor, our external oversight vendor. Their current assessment score for the STARS project is medium. These risks are being actively reviewed and monitored according to the mitigation. And the issues as well are actively managed according to the STAR issue management plan. All right. Next slide, please. I'd now like to turn it over to Elaine. Hi all, Elaine Smith. I need no, I'm impressed by anyone who does not. Maybe older than the rest of them, so maybe not, but nevertheless, we are going to talk next about the summary of our activity. The STARS project team has completed all Q2 milestones required by the contract. These milestones are the project schedule, the project resource plan, the scope change management plan, project organization chart, and the system security plan. In addition to completing these milestones, the project executive steering committee has made key strategic decisions as a result of feedback received by our oversight from our oversight partners. These decisions include accelerating the full implementation of end-to-end functionality for liquor luxury tax in RevHub and accelerating the implementation of GCOM's advanced analytics through the early opportunity initiative. The accelerated implementation of liquor luxury tax will be conducted in parallel with the planning and discovery activities for all other tax types. Planning efforts are already underway, including selecting the best go-live strategy. After discussion, the project executive steering committee approved an early adopter approach. This begins with a small group of taxpayers who will be selected to file electronically, followed by a full rollout to all monthly filers of the liquor tax. This approach allows the project team to exercise all RevHub enterprise functionality prior to going live. The early adopters will start filing and paying their January 2025 taxes due in February 2025 in the RevHub portal. After 2 months of filing from early adopters, the RevHub portal will be opened to all registered liquor taxpayers for the March 2025 filing, which occurred in April of 2025. Taxpayers who are not selected as early adopters will continue to file via paper until the portal is open to all liquor taxpayers. The project's executive steering committee also approved the early adopters initiative, the early opportunities initiative. The overarching goal is to roll out GCOM's advanced analytics early on in the project to produce early benefits for the state and its stakeholders. There are 3 initiatives, including collection optimization, accounts receivable minimization, and PPT audit analytics. The first 2 initiatives are designed to assist in lowering the state's overall accounts receivable due by accelerating the collection of outstanding amounts due. The last initiative will work to produce better audit fees. The change in timing of the luxury liquor tax implementation required the project team to adjust the work breakdown structure and resource plan to accommodate the additional work needed to implement the tax at an accelerated schedule. This includes bringing the best and brightest into the project full-time earlier than originally planned. We are adding functional leaders to our full-time team starting Monday. The functional leads will play an important role supporting the development and implementation of the liquor luxury tax and the subsequent tax type. It also includes adding additional project staff such as project support staff such as project managers and business analysts. Data conversion activities, organizational change management, and staff training plans have also been accelerated and these work streams are actively engaged in preparing the department for the changes coming our way. As the liquor luxury tax implementation moves forward, the project team will continue to work on discovery for all other tax types as originally planned. ADOR and GCOM staff continue to document the needs for each tax type and enterprise core function through the document of understanding and configuration. This work will continue throughout 2024. Next slide, please. And I will turn back over to the chairman, who will talk about WebClick.
Thank you, team. Excellent presentation. But before we do this, a lot of information was just shared. Any questions or comments based on the overview that was provided?
Sure.
Mr. Brown.
Just to clarify, so it looks like the liquor tax will be the first time that we get to see the public touching the new system and get input back sometime in early 2025. Is that right? Is that the right interpretation?
Like the team to respond to Mr. Brown's question.
Members of the committee, that is accurate. It'll be February will be the first section of early adopter, and then in April will be open to everybody.
Excellent. And Mr. Chair, can I follow up?
Absolutely.
And for the internal users at DOR, what will be the first time that they get to touch part of the new system?
Members of the committee,
Members of the committee, we are following an agile software development lifecycle. The environment is currently being stood up and hardened for IRS 1075 requirements. Within the next few weeks, we'll commence with data conversion of existing data, and internal users will be involved in the sprint process for configuration. So throughout the summer, they'll be in the system. They'll be part of the testing process as we go through sprints. They'll be part of our sprint ceremonies, and they'll be in the system testing functionality throughout the summer.
Excellent. Thank you. So people are going to start touching it very, very quickly, which is great to hear. We're going to get input quick. I'd like to hear that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Members of the committee, any other questions for the team based on the overview? Tricky to get the level of detail right. We can do the 30-minute version or we can do the 3-hour version. 30 minutes is good, Chairman. Thank you. Duly noted. Thank you. Okay, then moving on. I asked the team to put this in and allow me to talk about meeting cadence. Particularly in light of the fact that there are members of this committee that have other venues that touch this project. As we thought about the cadence, potentially a more frequent cadence earlier on makes sense so that we get the members of the committee up to speed and share the information that you need to consume. We wanted to recommend that throughout the life of the project, regardless, we would not meet less frequently than every 6 months, but certainly we can meet more frequently as needed. The next meeting would not be later than September of 2024, but I think this is a good point to pause and have a quick discussion with the committee. How often do we think we should meet? Do we have the ability to meet as a committee? Ability not just being that we're allowed to get together, but that we have the time and the resources to consume the information and really make it a value added gathering. Mr. Liu.
Chairman, I ask back a question to you. If what value added input from us are you looking for? At what point do you think are going to be important? I mean, I think as you go, you're probably going to identify those points, but just generally so that we know and maybe we can think about what is most valuable to you from us or to the team from us.
I appreciate the question. I will start the answer and then I will give the team the opportunity to chime in. I think that this is an opportunity as liaisons to ensure, for lack of a better way to say it, that there's no surprises when we turn the system on. And with software, once it's coded, now I recognize that the system is highly configurable, but once the system is coded, that's almost like putting down a layer of concrete that's harder to change later. So I do think that as there's interest in the committee, talking about things sooner helps everyone's interest involved. And when I think about that question in particular, maybe I could ask the team, to talk about the timeline on the liquor tax as an example. Because it's a smaller, less complex tax type that minimizes the risk to the department and the end users, but still forces us to learn tremendously valuable lessons that will serve more complex tax types. But I do think even using that as an example, what are the touch points for this committee, even in turning that tax type on and some of the user interaction that can inform later phases? So I think it might make sense for us to spend a few minutes talking about that timeline and where some of that end user feedback can come in. Does that make sense? But could I ask a member of the team to talk about the timeline and where we make key decisions that where user feedback is really valuable?
Members of the committee, it's a wonderful question as to what your role is, what feedback you can provide us. I think the biggest feedback you provide us is being that in between person. And as and when we are deploying, I think the 6-month timeline works really well because our teams are actually gone in the system. Potentially next time we could come here and showcase what we've done so far. And I don't want to put you in the spot, but having said that, giving that level of feedback, and from your vantage point, just not as a county manager, but you're interacting with the other users. And so how do you see it? And also how user friendly it appears to be. Everything to do with your role is to be in between the users and deployment system. And if you see any areas of diminished user experience where it could be enhanced, provide us some input, how we can improve things. Now, keep in mind is that we have our requirements down, we have a contract down that's incorporated that we cannot go into, but providing that level of, that would be just one way of looking at it. And you could come up with any other input. You could say this is not fast enough. And in fact, in terms of Pinal County, your team is going to be touching our property tax pieces later on. And so you could bring that expertise to the table and kind of give us some input on how that can be enhanced. Anybody on the team would like to follow up on it?
Okay. So Mr. Deshpande, in terms of the timing, if we went with September of 2024 for the next meeting, are you saying that gives the team enough time to get things in place, that there's a meaningful update to the committee, but it's still early enough to get feedback the team can still take into account?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you're absolutely right. I think what is going on right now, the teams are working, so you're not actually seeing a product in front of you. To give meaningful input, we are hoping that when the team touches the product, we can maybe show some wireframes, maybe show something, and then you can get an early start in there, and then you can, give us input there. So that timing works really well for us. Because it's September 24th, in the summer is when Saurabh talked about our teams will actually touch it. So hopefully we can show something in September.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the information. Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Mr. Chair, my question is probably more for Mr. Deshpande. How much can you tell us right now about what the requirements are that you've developed for the system?
So members of the committee, we are in the process of actually getting the requirements as we speak. So if you want to have a look at the work breakdown structure, we can certainly provide that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So part of the request for proposals included several notable attachments that those of us unfortunately have memorized. Attachments 12, 13, and 19 specifically talk about different business and technical requirements, and attachment 19 talks about interface. So there were specific requirements that were asked for in the RFP process that we responded to and we demonstrated against. It's also worth noting that in large projects like this, where there are many thousands of requirements and many users, sometimes some nuance is lost, sometimes requirements are missed, sometimes there's confusion. So what Cynthia described a little bit earlier was what we call the document of understanding. And the document of understanding is a very long process that allows us to go through those requirements in detail. We review current state systems. We talk about an anticipated end state of those systems. We talk about existing systems. We talk about potential interfaces between systems. And we make sure we have a common understanding what the actual business problems are. So while there are requirements, if we were just to take those requirements and build to them, I don't think generally people would be happy with the net state. And that's not a knock on a requirements gathering process. So there are requirements available. Our approach is to go through an iterative software software development lifecycle. We'll do, for example, revenue accounting and taxpayer forms, reports. There's a specific sprints process that we'll go through for an agile approach. And as we go through each of those phases of our development and configuration, IT users and business users from ADUR will be working alongside GCOM to be in the system, looking at those. It's not a formal user acceptance test that will come later, but they'll be able to provide feedback along those requirements to make sure that we're meeting the business need, not that we're just meeting the letter of the law, what was written. I think there is an important distinction between the two. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Committee members, excellent questions. And any other questions? Any other slides? Okay, so I think we've finished the presentation. So beyond the presentation, I think this is where we will open up the floor in the agenda. Members, are there any questions or comments about the committee and particularly discussion topics for future meetings? This certainly will not be the only opportunity. We will give committee members to submit questions that we can address in future meetings. But are there any topics that are top of mind based on what we've seen today that could inform a future meeting? Mr. Liu.
Sure. I like how you're doing the kind of the more simple, more risk adverse with the liquor tax. I was wondering if you have a plan or a schedule of the phasing of the other types of taxes and users of when they're going to start interfacing with those sections. And I don't know what they all are, but property tax and TPT and other. I was just curious as to if there's a implementation timeline to start with the pilots of those groups.
Yes. Would you like us to respond briefly to that now, or is that also a topic for a future meeting?
I thought maybe just in general, if there's a visual, probably easier to follow, or now.
Okay.
It makes more sense.
Maybe we speak it briefly now, but we can go into that in more detail. Certainly. Can I have a member of the team respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, there was a very brief overview slide, but I can provide a little more detail. So phase one, which were the minor taxes and fees, includes tobacco, nuclear generating assessments, bingo, unclaimed property cheated based. Am I missing one? I always forget one for some reason. Phase two focused on corporate income tax, followed by individual income tax, and then transaction brothers tax. And property tax is also phase one. We do have a high level deployment schedule. Roughly, we're looking at about 2 years before we get to phase two for corporate, and then another year for individual, another year for TPT. Those specific dates have not been made publicly available. For each of those, we have worked together to identify a target window. You can imagine for individual income tax, it can't go live in February. So there are particular windows that we have to factor into our overall schedule. And then for each tax or fee, we look at a deployment pattern. So we're going with an early adopter approach for liquor luxury tax that may not be appropriate for individual income tax. So the specific schedule will depend upon the deployment pattern we propose together. But generally, that's the overall timeline.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Liu and members of the committee, I think for those of us that frankly touch this project on a daily basis, when we close our eyes, we can see the project schedule in our mind's eye. But I think potentially it would be valuable for each meeting just to show us what has changed. How does that overall, I think the high level schedule will be something we likely bring to every meeting, just for those of us that don't think about this on a daily basis. Would be my recommendation to the team. Thanks. Members, any other questions or comments? Certainly our folks on the phone, I see Ms. Gitkin has a question. We welcome your question.
Thank you, Chairman Wood, members of the committee. One of the things that I have seen that can really be a pain point for a schedule is integration. So I think maybe something in the future that kind of tells us what that integration is, if there is even any integration.
Thank you for the question. Team, would you like to respond? Very, very high level. We can certainly go deeper in a future meeting, but very high level response.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, at a very high level, there are about 120 existing systems and interfaces that create the landscape of the current tax processing system at Arizona, the Department of Revenue. So part of each phase includes a thorough discussion and documentation of existing interfaces. So for example, interfacing with AZ 360 is one example. Interfacing with the IRS for individual income tax returns is another. So we have to produce specific documentation around each interface and how we're going to transition if a transition is going to happen through STARS.
Excellent. We have noted that as a point of interest for future meetings. Excellent. Any other questions from our committee members who are joining us remotely today?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may. I know that our team meet frequently. You know, so I have the benefit of having sort of the updates monthly as to where the projects are. And again, appreciate all the team's effort to update my team on where things are at. I think really important to our process is sort of the IB&V, the independent verification and validation process. And I can't remember who it was that touched on the risks. Was that Laura Lee? The risk management and sort of where the department is at with managing those risks. I think that would maybe be an important topic, depending on where the meeting falls in September, as to what those risks are, how the department and ADOA might be working together to mitigate those risks and get on top of those risks. And whether that's a sort of an iterative process that the IB&V will continue throughout the rollout of different tax types and that sort of thing. But I think that is important to kind of maybe do a deep dive on, you know, because I know we touched on it and we have a bit more information on that, but for the committee's purpose, having some more information on the risk.
Excellent. I can speak to the, so IB&D, there are risks identified from multiple channels, team members, GCOM, IB&D, our IB&D partners at Gardner, in fact, refresh the risks, both in terms of risks addressed and new risks identified every 3 months. And the timing of, if we stayed on a cadence of whether it would be every 3 months or every 6 months, we would be following a refreshing of those IB&D observations. So there's always going to be, it's always going to be the latest and greatest on the schedule. So I think the team can definitely address that.
Okay, thank you.
And the chair notes that we may need more than an hour next time. Yes, Mr. Liu.
Can I bring up one more? I don't know how appropriate this is to this project, but as I was thinking about users, and I don't know how much the city do this or not, but, and I don't know how much this is a part of your mission, but it just, when machine learning was discussed, and of course, for some of the priorities for the department related to compliance and customer service and speed and identifying fraud, I don't know how much maybe JLBC or the cities or how many counties do this, but we also like to use the tool for analytical forecasting and business risk to our organizations. So I don't know, we get data dumps and we use them for those purposes. I know we did that at Scottsdale some and at the county. So I don't know how many others do that, or if there's any kind of learning or ways that when we get that tool, it helps us to, we usually just kind of tailor it to our own to try to identify whether it's just forecasting and building budgets and or when we're working on credit rating reports and garnering ratings. So again, I don't know how much that probably obviously isn't a primary purpose of what you all are doing from an ADOR functional perspective, but maybe from a government jurisdiction perspective, that's one of the benefits to the data and what we can use the data for.
So Mr. Lee, is the comment that there are some existing tools and processes out there that we can benchmark that we should at least be doing that going forward? Is that a comment?
I guess I wonder if that's something that I don't know how many jurisdictions use it in those fashions. I kind of wonder about it, but even though it's a little ancillary, it's important, you know, for us, and I'm sure the state's doing that as well all the time when they're forecasting their budgets and analyzing where the revenues are coming from categorically, where they're concentrated, what risks there are to certain businesses that are occurring, or changes in the economy and the business environment, as well as sometimes when economic impact analyses are being done on policies or projects. So I think that kind of information that exists in the system, although it may not be the primary purpose, and we're always mindful of the confidentiality, but it's how we use to, whether it's evaluating policy or analyzing forecasts or particular projects. All of those things, I think this data is helpful for. I think we usually grab it and then manipulate it to serve whatever purpose is going. So it's just something I was just thinking about to be mindful of, because I know it's something meaningful for us beyond kind of compliance and collection.
Excellent comments, Mr. Liu. Any questions or comments from the team to build on that or refine it? Yeah, Elaine.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and Leo. We are, the information we provide to the counties at this point is somewhat outdated. I mean, the data is good, but it's an outdated mechanism. It's just not optimal. We do have a better process for providing more data to the cities at this point. And I think even they would say that they're interested in even more than what they get now. But we can assure you that the counties will get no less, and it is our goal to have them get more, even in the requirement that there is more access to data for the needs that you just stated. So the county needs are a little bit different. They do have the ability to audit. Counties do not have the ability to audit. So there are different functions as we move from one user to another. However, we recognize the need for the counties to receive just data in just much more useful format, and just there's a lot more that can be provided that could help. And again, as you so kindly noted, within the confidential, using that you use it within the confidentiality confines. So it is definitely within the plan, and we do look forward to having input from both at the counties and the cities as we start moving toward those data outputs for out of GPT, and potentially even the proper sector.
So building on Mr. Liu's question, maybe a thought for the team here is in a future meeting, when we think the timing is right, that might be a deep dive topic to bring to this audience and get feedback on how we're going about getting that feedback and get direct feedback from the committee. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
I actually have a question. So I work with the PPAs. So I'll be going back to them and kind of trying to gather some information on their input. What's the best way to bring that information forward? Is that in a meeting? Is that is there a staff contact, or how would that information best be shared?
Yes. Thank you for the question, Ms. Webb. So I'm going to beg pardon of the committee. I'm still learning all the protocols, but I do believe that's a constituent group that has an interest in this project. And I think there's even a mechanism to facilitate some dialogue directly with those folks outside of a venue like this. I feel like this committee speaks to high level process, and some of those folks have a need to interface with the department. I think it would make sense to appropriately have that outreach. I'll ask the team to follow up on that. Neeraj, go ahead.
A very good question is that we have established an email address, and that you can actually push questions there, and then the staff will respond. The only thing I reiterate, Mr. Chairman, is that when you're shooting the email, don't copy the members. I mean, I don't want to sound condescending, but for some of you, you may not be used to this. But great question.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Committee members, any other questions or comments?
Seems like we've given, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Seems like we've given you and the staff a lot of information to figure out how to comply, but just to go over where we're at currently in the project, we're in the discovery phase. So as you build towards those milestones and get them up there, I think what I'm hearing and what I want to see is identifying before the milestones complete, where are those best points of interaction and feedback, not just from us, but from the groups that you want to help get information from. So as we go, I think we got plenty of time. If we're gonna go 6 months, September, the discovery phase should give us an idea of when are those things gonna roll out. But a little advice from the team, when they break that milestone out for us, tell us where, this is the point where we can take interaction and take change versus here in this milestone, we're kind of too far along, right? So we make sure we're timing our meetings and our feedback in that zone. Also, I'm making sense for the staff over here.
Excellent. Team, does that comment make sense?
Yeah,
Excellent,
absolutely.
excellent.
Appreciate it.
And that, Mr. Brown, that's an excellent point, and I think that will serve as a good discussion point for how often this committee needs to meet going forward, as well as other interaction points. Excellent. Team, any other questions? Sorry, committee, any other questions or comments? Already feels like a team. Okay, I will refer back to my my cheat sheet on the formal process. If there's no further business for the committee, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. So moved and second. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for a great first meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that. In 1 minute. Within 3
Wow,
minutes.
all right.
Thank you.
Good.